sports flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
And when he went out there, we were alerted that there was a visit given to me during a bench clearing incident. So I didn't agree with it. I didn't like that it was given in the first place, but I really didn't like the lack of communication on a really unusual play and period of time when there's people all over the field. My back's to the field, walking back to the dugout after everything, and then being told that that's the case. I didn't like it.
What did you guys make of that last night?
For Rocco being dinged for a trip to the mound that he supposedly didn't know about, despite the fact that Dick Bramer in the booth clearly saw it.
Dick Bramer called it like minutes in advance.
Yes. One is if the dugout, the umpire said in the pool report, the dugout is told. So somebody's not telling the truth. But here's my biggest takeaway to Rocco, and here's what I would tell him if I was his boss. Quit loitering. Quit coming out in the field. He comes out on the field. He's like PJ Fleck. Every time a guy gets hurt, Fleck runs out. Dude, that's not your job. It's the trainer's job. But like if there's a bench clearing thing, I think it's absolutely fine. Okay, the bench is clear. I don't love that, but whatever. But what I made of that is, and Bally's, to their credit, which had a rough night in some ways, did a great job at showing the replay, the complete field replay, right?
They basically didn't show the Carlos Correa standing ovation. They had the defensive alignment on the screen there.
The innings was wrong late in the game. It was a whole
Here's how the Astros stack up defensively. And now batting Babe Ruth. Anyway.
He's back.
Anyway, here's what I made of that. This is Rocco. I'm so tired of him walking around the field when he comes out there. So, dude, it's like, okay, you know the rule book says what you can't do. If you go on the pitcher's dirt, you're going to be charged with a trip, almost certainly. He was. That's fair. It's his fault. But I stay off the field. Unless you think a player is going to die out there, let the trainer go out and address it. And then if the guy has to come out, he has to come. But I'm so tired of this guy running on the field like he is an authority figure. You're the manager of the Minnesota Twins. That means you're supposed to be in the Minnesota Twins dugout.
Yeah, I wanna sit here and fight with you on this so badly because I do think it was bad communication by the umpires. Because in credit to Bally's for Bally's had the bad start to the game where it's like you guys had all day for this one moment and you kind of botched it. But then they had that footage. It was like 60 seconds or 90 seconds of footage where they kind of slow-mo followed. Okay, here's the benches clearing, and now the situation has died off, and there's Rocco literally walking up onto the top of the mound, and he talks to Aaron Sanchez, and whether they're talking strategy, whether he's taking that moment to say, hey, by the way, the next batter, this and this and this, which I don't think they were talking strategy to that detail, or whether he was saying, hey, are you good? Are we cool here? Like, are you calm? You're standing on the mound. Dick Bramer busted out the rule book between innings. You know very clearly that if you walk out in any circumstance. So now the umpires, it looked like they did a bad job of making it clear. And even when my third cousin Pete Mackey came walking out, like two umpires tried to cut him off at the pass and say, whoa, are you sure you want to do this? And the Twins just obliviously plowed forward with the second mound visit. So if this is like a pie chart of blame for mound visit gate last night, we should put 20 to 25% on umpires just being completely incompetent and replaceable on so many levels by machines. But it felt like Rocco was gaslighting. It's like, dude, you knew exactly what you were doing. You know what the rules are. Right. You didn't have to walk on the mound. You could have walked around the mound and just said something to your pitcher, and it's not a mound visit. The four umpires are standing 15 feet off the mound as you walked up to the top of it, and then you pretend like, so you were trying to get away with one. This is what bothers me.
Yeah.
Like, he's gaslighting. You were trying to get away with one, and then you're blaming the umpires for not, well, they didn't tell me it was a mound visit. Bro, you walked up on the mound. And so it's like this sort of victim mindset, and I feel like this is also like 20 years of my frustration with the Twins boiling over here, too. It's like, you guys aren't victims. You weren't a victim last night. You know the rules. Other teams deal with injuries. Other teams deal with things, right? It's like, this sort of woe is me attitude that plagues this franchise bothers me. And I thought last night was a microcosm of it, thanks to Rocco.
And the umpire
am I over projecting with that take or no?
No, because the umpire made it very clear. He said in the pool report the Twins dugout was informed. So somebody's lying, first of all.
Your bench needs to, like, I mean, there's a reason why you have a bench coach, and there's a reason why you have 15 assistant coaches on an assistant hitting coach, right?
I am so tired of this guy thinking he is a little league coach, and Mr. Baldelli is going to come out and check on the kids. Mr. Baldelli is going to settle things down. Dude, we don't need that. We don't need that. And he said, well, I went up on the mound to ask Sanchez, are you okay? Okay, first of all, that's still a communication in a restricted area where a trip is charged. So it doesn't, so to your point, Phil, that's a non-starter as far as, well, whoa, I didn't talk about strategy.
Yeah.
But second of all, the thing is when Dick Bramer in the booth says, they just charged him with a mound visit. And he said that before. He's he's literally sitting in the
upper deck behind home plate calling this game. And he's in his mid-60s. And he says, I think they just charged the Twins with a mound visit.
And sad-looking Pete Mackey comes out, because he always looks like he's about to start crying. He looks forlorn. He comes out, and Bramer immediately says, this isn't going to be a second visit. And so, I have no sympathy for the Twins. Whether the umpires could have done a better job communicating that or not, I have no sympathy for the fact that for all the Twins claim, we're on top of everything. And that's their whole, we're on top of everything. Well, in this case, you weren't. And in this case, I don't have a problem with Baldelli expressing some frustration, but I also wanted him to fall on the sword then and say, hey, you know what? Ultimately, that's on me. I got to know that.
Actually, I'm gonna give out another chunk of pie here real quick, because all of this started with squirrely little Jose Altuve, cheater Jose Altuve, brilliant, getting all freaking worked up about a very standard two-seam fastball that rode in and grazed him on the thigh. In a 2-0 game, it's in the middle of the fifth inning, right? Leading off the fifth inning, there's zero chance Aaron Sanchez is trying to put the leadoff man on base in that situation. And Aaron Sanchez's reaction was the same as like most reasonable people. Like, dude, what? He's got his arms out like, are you serious? You thought I threw it at you on purpose? And so a 5% to Jose Altuve for being an oversensitive little weasel. And then 25% to the umpires for probably doing a bad job of communicating. But the rest goes to Rocco for a fairly epic mistake. Now, it wasn't like the Twins had Justin Verlander on the mound and he had to be pulled during a no-hitter in the fifth inning or something. It was Aaron Sanchez. They were probably on the verge of going to their bullpen at some point anyways.
Yes.
So the real problem is this lineup has just stopped hitting. And in fact, let's transition into sort of a state of the Twins discussion here, because yesterday was a very bad day for the Twins. All the reasons we just talked about. Another loss. The Twins are now 35-43, 8 games under 500 since May 24th. I believe they're 3 games back in the division behind the Guardians right now. They're only like a game up on the White Sox. They have become incapable of scoring runs since the trade deadline, seemingly. And Byron Buxton finally landed on the injured list for the first time this season. He's got chronic knee issues. This is listed as a hip problem that Rocco Baldelli told reporters. You guys don't even know half of the things he's been dealing with. So just a whole nother Pandora's box of questions. They have been dealing, in fairness, with a lot of injuries. A lot of teams deal with injuries, but what do you guys make of just the general state of the Twins after a culminating disastrous day yesterday on many fronts?
It's classic baseball that sometimes when your pitching is working, then your offense drops off. I mean, the Twins' offense in August has been awful. Through 20 games, the team is slugging .368. Yeah. They have driven in 69 RBI in 20 of those games. They're just simply not hitting. They're not getting on base. They're not driving runs. It's been quiet. And yeah, the injuries will happen here and there, but at the end of the day, you got to drive in runs. The Twins had runners at the corners at the 8th last night. No outs, couldn't drive in a run. It's frustrating to watch. I would like to think that sometimes you're fighting through adversity and you're going to eventually get on the other side of this here. But I mean, time's ticking. 3 games left. You've kind of imploded over the last few weeks. Cleveland, although not a great team, is starting to run away and pull away from the division. So it's kind of go time here. Like if you, my grand scheme of this is that if you don't make the playoffs after being in first place for basically more than half of this season, someone has to be a casualty. Someone has to fall on the sword for this. Whether, I don't know if it's Rocco or Falvey or Levine, but someone has to fall on the sword for that type of letdown if you don't figure out a way to be in the playoffs.
But here's what happens, dude. This is the crazy thing about the Twins. There's always some sort of, well, what did you expect? I mean, it's this is kind of who they are. This is kind of who they've been since May 25th. I mean, what did you expect out of this rotation? It's always like this blameless. I feel like the commentary around the Twins is always this sort of blameless, generalized discussion about, well, I mean, like I was getting into it with some people on Twitter last night about Max Kepler, for instance. So that like Max Kepler, and we brought this up on the show early this week. Max Kepler peaked in 2019 as a 26-year-old, hits 36 bombs, and I get that the ball was kind of juiced in 2019, but his drop-off relative to the league's drop-off since 2019 is not equal. He has fallen off. He has become a below-average hitter in his prime, just like Miguel Sano. And so you pose this, and the way that people think is, well, I mean, but that's kind of always who he's always been kind of like that was the one outlier season. It's like, so you guys think in 2019 when you watched Miguel Sano and Max Kepler entering their primes, having these huge offensive seasons, you guys are telling me that you expected them to drop off the planet age 27, 28, 29, but it's always this sort of like, well, I mean, hitters are kind of volatile, and offense has dropped off around the league. I'm not just going to fire people for the sake of firing people, but I'm kind of with Declan in that I want to know why certain things are happening. Why are some of your key hitters dropping off the face of the earth in their prime years, right? Why are I think why are your pitchers who are coming up through the minor league pipeline not contributing more over the past 5 or 6 years? There's a lot. If they don't make the playoffs, there's a lot of reasons besides injury to ask why and how for this franchise.
Oh, there's so much to unpack here. So, first of all, part of this comes back, Phil, to your longstanding poll ad point, is they're not inquisitive enough to ask that question. Like when things change with the Twins, it's when they do make major changes, but they're not going to here. I don't think anybody is in trouble. I really don't. Because Falvey is not going to fire Baldelli. The only way Rocco gets canned is if he says, I am sick of this crap. I'm sick of lifting pitchers I don't want to. I'm sick of your instructions. That's how you get canned. And I'm pretty sure now that we can figure out the timeline and probably more importantly the play-by-play of when Molitor got canned himself, right? Because I'm sure at some point he said, you guys are telling me at 3 o'clock what I'm going to do. I know more baseball than any of you idiots, and I'm not going to. It's stupid. And they said, okay, now you're fired. Baldelli, if he says that, gets fired. If he doesn't, I think he's fine. But I'd like to go to one player in particular who we've talked about a lot in a lot of different ways, and I still love the move because it was fun and a great surprise. Carlos Correa has underachieved to a degree that I don't think if he played in a real market, he'd be getting a ton of heat for. Carlos Correa, for what the expectation was. Now, I will defend it, like defensively, fun to watch, love it. But when you think about what his paycheck is right now, he is, I believe, the highest paid infielder in baseball. And when you think of what the expectation was with him at shortstop, and probably just as importantly his bat, and what he has done with his bat, he has been nothing short of a bust. He has been nothing short of a complete bust. And I don't think I've seen that. I've seen griping. I've seen tweeted statistics which are accurate. But I don't think I've seen anybody come out and say, what the hell happened here? You are essentially in a contract year. Like, you came here to prove that you deserve to be among the highest paid shortstops. A position now that is filled with just great talent. And you were going to be one of the highest paid. And you were going to spend a year here post-lockout proving you deserved a payday that was going to probably pay you millions and millions for 8 years. And you have been a bust. You have let us down. You have let this team down. And you know what? I'm not as bad as Patrick. I think the clubhouse thing is important. So I'm not going to say I don't care if he can lead or not. Because you know what? I do sort of care about that. But when the expectation, most importantly, is at the plate, you are going to set a tone for this lineup, and you have done as little as he has. I have one question. Where's the heat?
I think bust is way too strong of a word to describe his tenure here. I mean, he's still actually putting up pretty decent numbers. He's been worth 3.5 wins above replacement. He's a Gold Glove caliber shortstop. You know, the Keplers, the Sano's, those guys are busts. Like, those are now tracking more towards bust territory. I will say underachieving to a degree, for sure. Like, he was brought in here to kind of change everything, not just the culture, but at the plate and be a legitimate hitter. I think bust is too strong of a word for him because he actually still, I think, means a lot to the team. And without him, I don't think the Twins were in first place for the majority of that season. But underachieving, for sure, I can hear that argument.
Yeah, I'm with Declan. I think it's too strong to say he's a bust. Has he been the player that you thought you were signing? No, I don't think he's been the offensive producer that you were hoping for. Now, his career has left some little breadcrumbs that, you know, once every 2 or 3 years, he puts up a semi-clunker offensively. He gives you pretty consistent top-end defense at shortstop. Mm-hmm. And then he'll just, like, once every other year, every 3 years, he'll just give you kind of a weird, blasé offensive season, and he's giving you that this year. Another question I would pose off of this, and again, I don't know the answer, but I have so many questions about the last 2 years of Twins baseball.
Let's say this quick.
Yeah.
Relative to his salary, he's a bust. Relative to the expectation of the salary, he's a bust. He is, again, I believe, the highest paid infielder in all of baseball. If he had taken a nice contract, I'd be like, yeah, it's disappointing. Mm-hmm. But when you are making what he is, my meter of bust changes. And I think he's a bust for the salary.
I would still love him back next year because I think he's a really good player, even when he's not performing and I just think he adds a lot. But I think this is what's crazy about this organization. 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was correct to say that the environment that they had built systematically in the clubhouse, coaching staff, whatever it is, whatever the sort of environmental secret sauce was, 2019 at its peak. That environment helped squeeze the most out of almost every hitter on that roster, right? Mitch Garver had this ridiculous season. And I get that the ball was juiced in 2019, but the ball was juiced for everyone. And the Twins led the major leagues in home runs and had this ridiculous offense. So I'm comparing the Twins relative to the league, 2019, and then in subsequent years. The environment helped produce all of these players' peak capabilities. Mm-hmm. And it feels like the opposite now, except for maybe Luis Ariz, who's having a career season. He's still leading the American League in batting average by like 10 points. But, you know, what is it now? Is it just coincidence? Is it just bad luck? You know, going back to the Kepler-Sano thing or the Carlos Correa thing, or, you know, like Gio Urshela has been fine, just like a slightly above league average hitter, which is maybe what he's supposed to be. But why did this organization go from 3 or 4 years ago, wow, look at all the toothpaste they're squeezing out of this tube. This is crazy. All these guys are performing at their peak capabilities. And now it's just pedestrian across the board. Was it, hey, just a crazy season of stars aligning a few years ago and good luck and good fortune? Is there something different environmentally now compared to a few years ago? I don't know the answer, but I'm curious. It's just like that game last night. I think going into the game, people knew that Justin Verlander was going to flirt with a no-hitter or some sort of ridiculous pitching performance.
Absolutely.
The fact that he had a no-hitter through 6 was not shocking.
Yep.
And I get that Buxton's on the IL, but, and by the way, all roads lead to Jake Cave with this organization too, of course, right? Of course, he's, you know, you go through 8 outfielders and you finally get to Jake Cave because of injuries and stuff, and there he is, a chance to be the hero, and he has 0 chance at the end of that game. I
think part of what's caught up with them now too, and I think they faked it for a while, but they can't now, is there is, despite what they protest too much about their attention to detail, because I think there's actually a lot of times a lack of attention to things. They do not run the bases well. That matters a lot. It's a small thing. It looks small, but it's big. Nick Gordon last night doesn't catch a ball. You can't have, when you are going against the Houston Astros in Houston, Verlander pitching. All right, that can't happen. Mistakes happen, Judd. What? You can't say that. Okay, I'll say it. That can't happen. The regression of players has definitely hurt them. The lack of overall depth at certain positions has hurt them. I'll go back to this. Byron Buxton being hurt sucks. And his current predicament is a complete downer. But Byron Buxton has been injured his whole career. And you know what this team has never done? This team has never, and I said this. I said this 4 years ago. Go into the season with a very serviceable, good backup center fielder who can play some left until Buxton gets hurt.
Yeah.
And Celestino comes as close as you possibly can, but Nick Gordon's out there. I'll say it again, last weekend, or I should say 2 weekends ago, how does Nick Gordon end up being the final piece of a defensive substitution system in left field against the Angels? I understand he has to play out there, but you had other options, other ways to go. But because you are so tied into, and I really think that this is a big part of the overall problem, and it's going to seem small, but I think it comes out being big. And if nothing else, it's Rocco's problem. Rocco manages the game by the inning with no thought to the rest of the game. He manages 9 baseball games. And so he's going to do what he thinks is best in the 5th with no thought for the 9th. And what Royce has said, and he's right, is Tom Kelly was a genius in the 1st at saying, how's this going to impact the 8th and 9th? Name me the last time you guys have seen Rocco manage a game, and by the 9th, you're like, oh, I now get that move, where you don't pinch hit because you don't want a guy in defensively, where you make a move based on the fact that you know that there's some risk to allowing this to happen in the 5th, but if you come out in the 9th, there's going to be more risk.
Yeah. Real quick, you mentioned a few minutes ago the base running. The eye test would tell you, boy, they're a really bad base running team, right? And I wanted to see statistically if that narrative was true. And it is. According to Fangraphs, the Twins are the 2nd worst base running team in the major leagues behind only the Washington Nationals. They have been worth 13 runs below average on the base paths alone this season. And so the Dodgers are the best base running team. How about that? The Dodgers have the biggest payroll, the best lineup, the best hitters, all-star hitters all around, and they're also one of the more fundamentally sound teams, right? Just running the bases. The Twins have been 30 runs worse on the bases alone compared to the Dodgers. So there you have it.
And it's hilarious, too, because they've actually stolen 10 bases this month in August. It's been the only thing on their offense. I'm looking at their stat news page right now. Before, they've only stolen 3, 3, 6, and 4. They've stolen no bases, but obviously, and the art of the stolen base has clearly just gone away in baseball. It's actually kind of mind blowing to me. But in terms of base running IQ, it is. You don't have to look at a stat page to realize they are clumsy and just clueless on the base paths.
Yeah. You know who's not clumsy and clueless? Our friends at Nutrisource, the official dog food of Mackie and Judd and Maya and Stella. Nutrisource is a 3rd-generation family-owned and operated business out of Perham, Minnesota, and they're all about digestion and gut health. Look at Stella and her little friend there.
Ryder, he was thrilled by that.
Just hanging out by the bag of Nutrisource treats, Judd. Very exciting for our dogs.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, 6 o'clock this morning, I was being barked at. Do you know why? Because Stella said, you know what, old man, it's time to feed me because I want my Nutrisource now. She woofed it down and came back to bed. She loved it.
Amazing. Go to NutrisourcePetFoods.com to find a retailer near you. NutrisourcePetFoods.com. It's also golf season, and fall golf is on the horizon, Declan. Meadows at Mystic is a great place to tee off.
Yeah, you can savor the rest of these summer days and summer weeks at the Meadows at Mystic Lake in an 18-hole public golf course, offering a unique, challenging experience and just a little drive down the Twin Cities on 169 down in Prior Lake. They have a great golf shop and which is one of my favorite things about it. Their pro shop has top-of-the-line equipment and apparel, not just sleeves of balls, but you can get a nice little polo there. Judd likes his hoodie. I like my polos. You can get a great selection there. You can book your tee time now at golfthemeadows.com to learn more. The Meadows at Mystic Lake, golfthemeadows.com to learn more.
One last thing, and then we'll get to write that down predictions here on this Wednesday edition of Mackie and Judd. Both of us grinding through the injured list. Judd with a gaping wound from emergency appendectomy surgery. I've reached the loss of smell and taste portion of my COVID week here.
Okay.
Very exciting.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
You're grinding through it.
About 85% loss of taste and smell here, so that's exciting. But I think, like, one last thought on the Twins here. What's kind of amazing and sad all in one is that as flat as they've been in the last few weeks, if they can just get to the playoffs, which at this point there's only like a 25% chance according to the ESPN.com standings, they actually have some really good framework for a playoff series, but it depends on like Tyler Mahle coming back at some point. Like, they've got 3 pretty good starting pitchers that you would trust in a playoff series. They've got a few big-time hitters that if Correa clicks a little bit more, if Buxton can feel better after 10 days, a lot of ifs here.
Yeah,
and then but then they've got flamethrowers at the back of their bullpen. They're actually, like, of all the years of Twins trips to the playoffs, I'm not saying this is the best, but there's some pretty good bones here to do something in the, not like beat the Yankees or anything, go to the World Series, but you could for sure win a game or a 3-game series if these things are right going in, but the chances of them even getting there at this point look bleak at best.
If Mahle doesn't come back, that's another discussion too, by the way. I don't know when he got hurt. I almost don't care at this point.
Well, he was hurt earlier this season with shoulder fatigue before they traded for him.
Dyson, Paddock, Mahle. How does this keep happening? And we know for a fact that in the case of Paddock, the Mets saw the physical and said, we're not going to make that trade. And that trade was going to be done. I'm just saying, like, there's just a lot of concerning flags here about a lot of things that go beyond, like, a 4-game losing streak. There's a lot of things when you continue to get these deliveries from UPS and you open the box and you're like, I got my oh, it's broken. Yeah. Let's order again. So I got my Dyson, he's broken.
This is the crazy thing. Like, this is a story. I just Googled this. This is from CBS, a CBS fantasy write-up here on July 6th, 2022. Tyler Mahle said Wednesday that his shoulder injury is, quote, not concerning at all. He was placed on the 15-day injured list with right shoulder strain on Wednesday, underwent an MRI that revealed some non-concerning irritation and inflammation. Who put the word non-concerning in there, by the way?
The teams
is that the writer?
I bet the Reds told him that.
Irritation and inflammation. The right-hander will be shut down for 5 to 7 days to allow his shoulder to heal, but he expects to be back in action shortly after the All-Star break. But again, it's damaged goods just a few weeks before you traded for him. It's just, and you're right, Dyson, are they going out purposely looking to take risks on pitchers that were recently diagnosed with arm injuries? Like the Chris Paddock thing, I mean, it was a strained UCL at the end of last season. It was well documented.
Yes.
Dude, I agree. If he comes back and pitches lights out the rest of the year and they make the playoffs, all right. But if he doesn't, this would now be the 3rd time that something like this happens within a 3-year period, including twice with starting pitchers in the last 12 months. Yep. Very bizarre. And just to see how he did after he came back with the Reds. I mean, they were trying to, I'm sure, rush him back out there to show, because this was like early to mid-July, trade deadline's on the horizon, and the Reds are like, well, we'd like to get this guy out back on the trade block. And I'm sure Mahle, too, is like, yeah, I'd like to go pitch for a contender. And so he comes back, pitches once on July 24th, and then again on July 30th, goes 6 innings in both of those starts. You know, I don't have the velocity readings or anything like that, but, you know, he was getting some swinging strikes and allowed 3 runs and 2 runs and was, like, statistically looked fine. And the Twins needed a starting pitcher, so I don't know what the process was, but you're telling me that it's not a little concerning that he had shoulder inflammation 2 weeks before you traded for him?
It's not concerning. Don't worry about me, Phil. I'll be fine. My appendectomy, it's fine. It's not concerning.
Non-concerning irritation and inflammation of the shoulder. Don't worry. It's not concerning. According to who?
I gotta know. Don't worry about me.
Guy lands on the injured list 5 minutes after the Twins trade for him. Amazing. Anyhow, all right. Mackie and Judd here. We're gonna collect ourselves for a minute and then give you some write that down predictions on this Wednesday.